Hello again. I'm Lorne Rubenstein, and I'm here on the next edition of Sinai Stories with Lance Gitter. Now, Lance, you're a longtime member, I understand, since you had your bar mitzvah in 1963, and you've gotten quite involved with Temple in many different ways, primarily video photographer. But, what has that involvement meant to you over the years, and to what extent has it deepened your relationship with Temple Sinai?
Well, Temple was really my second home for a number of years. We joined in '63 in time for my bar mitzvah, and through my mid-teen years, I was very involved in the youth group in Lotzi. I spent more time at Temple than I did at home for several of those years, so it was a very strong part of my life then. Um, I met my wife at Temple when I was running the bridge club for the sisterhood for a number of years, and she came to take lessons, and we got married. Our kids had their bar and bat mitzvahs there. Um, Now, through the years, I got less involved until the year of Matan Torah, which was, I think, about 15 years ago, when Debbie Cooper, who was a classmate of mine from like grade two, called me up one day and said, "How'd you like to get involved by taking pictures? We're writing a Torah and we're going to have scribe appointments." So I readily said yes, got me back into Temple, and that's how I became sort of one of the, I call myself an official, unofficial photographer of events at Temple. And
Mhm.
yeah.
That's a very significant moment when people become scribes and do a letter in the Torah. When you're doing your photography in those incidents, what are you trying to capture?
I'm trying to capture the emotion and just the event. I remember, um, it was so. Uh, Neil Yerman was so special. He was the scribe who came from New York, and he came every about every month or two for a week, and I'd spend the week there at Temple, just one appointment after another. And as each family gathered to write a word or a letter in the Torah, just sitting there listening to the clergy, talking to them, and feeling how special it was to feel that they were writing something that was going to be shared by not only them but their children, their grandchildren down the road. There a very strong emotional feeling to that, and there were some amazing stories that came out of that. Some of the appointments that will stick with me like forever.
Can you recall one or two of those for us?
Well, I think the two most significant ones were um, one of the founding members had Alzheimer's, and he had been in a home for a number of years. And his wife and children came for the scribe appointment. He wasn't mobile at all; he was in a wheelchair, so they brought the table down from the bima down to the bottom of the steps, where they have, the little stand for Friday night services, or they start services now with the little portable lectern. So he brought the table down there, laid out with everything else. Now, this fellow had not spoken, I was told, for maybe a year, maybe longer, maybe 18 months. Hadn't said anything. He was like really out of it, but it was so special for the family because he was a founding member. And I remember when they wheeled him up to the table with the parchment on it that the scribe was introducing, and said, "We're going to write a letter or write a word." And as soon as they wheeled his chair up, he took one look, and we were doing the beginning of the Torah, and he started chanting the Bereshit.
Mm.
Okay, and this is like, chills down your back, because this is someone who hadn't been able to communicate for a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And that story will always stick with me. The other one was my father, who passed away 12 years ago. As a matter of fact, his yard site is this Friday. He had had a stroke a couple years before, and he was in a home, and our family was writing a letter. Now, my father was an artist. He loved to draw, And at that point, the only thing he really still could draw was cartoons. And he loved Popeye. He'd draw Popeye anytime you hand him a pen or a pencil or a piece of paper. He'd draw Popeye, and he's always joking. And so he says to the scribe when it came our turn to write a letter, and he says to the scribe who handed him the quill with the ink on it, the parchment, and he turns to him and says, "Can I draw Popeye in the Torah?"
That must have been a beautiful moment for you in a way. You have a
Okay,
laugh.
so yeah, we had a good laugh, and the scribe said, the way this works with, you put your hand on the quill, my hand is on yours, and if you want to go that way, and I don't want you to go that way, you're not going that way, okay? In other words, what you're writing, the quill is going to go the way I'm directing it. He says, no, but I'll tell you what. And he pulled out, cut off a piece of parchment, the same parchment used to make the Torah, and he handed it to my father and handed him the quill and said, draw it on this. And he drew Popeye, the cartoon, and then he put it in his wallet. He says, I'm going to keep this. And now every time he's come to temple since then, and this was early in the year, every time he came for scribe appointments, as soon as he saw me, he opened up in his wallet and took out the piece of parchment with Popeye on it. That I will always remember this.
Well, Lance, it's clear that you've enriched a lot of people's lives, members' lives at Temple Sinai, and it's obvious that your life has been enriched as well by doing all of this. So we just want to thank you for your contributions, your continued efforts right now at this difficult time in the pandemic, when I know you're helping behind the scenes so the clergy can really do their own work. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, we're doing that, and I saw that they have to pray, but also to use the technology. So I offered. I said, maybe I can help out here. I'm comfortable with technology. Maybe you need someone, the techie behind the scenes. So a couple of us are doing that. Arnie Lean and I are doing that for Friday night services, Saturday morning services. We're controlling, which views, whether you see, all the speakers or just the speaker, the gallery, muting, unmuting, starting, stopping videos, etc. I'm also involved in the choir, and I've taken on a volunteer job to put together some of these videos that the choir is doing. We've started introducing some of them in the services, and we're going to be doing a whole bunch of them for the high holidays because,
Mhm.
as we all know, the high holidays are going to be virtual. So this is going to allow the members and the congregation to hear the blended voices because, as we all know, Zoom, you can't have more than one person talking or singing at a time. It just doesn't work. You can't
Mhm.
do the audio. So we're doing this ahead of time. We're putting together videos and audio recordings, and we're going to be using those in services going forward. And it's a major project, but I'm um, fortunate I have the time, and I'm taking advantage of the opportunity to learn video editing in order to make this happen. And it's the feedback's very rewarding, and it feels like we're doing some good for our community.
You're definitely doing some good and have been for a long time. I appreciate your joining us today, and we look forward to the way the high holiday services are going to be conducted in this very difficult time.
Right.
Thanks very much, Lance.
Okay. Thank you, Lorne.